How to manage your money on payday. Payday is here. For many, it's the best day of the month. That moment when the bank account seems to breathe again. But with that good feeling of having money, also comes responsibility. What do you do now that the paycheck has fallen due? The decision you make at that very moment can have an impact on your entire month, and, if well thought out, can change your financial future. I know, it's easy to fall into the temptation of spending everything at once. That new gadget, clothes, dinner out, it makes you want to, doesn't it? But calm down. Before you start spending, take a deep breath and follow me. I'm going to show you a simple method in 5 tips for organizing your money in a practical way, without needing complicated spreadsheets or spending hours of your day. Let's learn together how to make smart financial decisions so that your money works for you and not the other way around. Phase 1. Mapping your income. The first thing you need to understand is exactly how much money you have coming into your account each month. It may seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do this calculation correctly or completely. Here's the point. It's not just about your salary. We often have other sources of income that add to our monthly earnings. For example, if you do something extra at weekends, or freelance in your spare time, or even have an investment that generates a small monthly income, all of this counts as part of your income. Here's a simple example. If you work a full-time job and earn $3,000 a month, but do odd jobs on the weekends and earn an extra $500, your monthly income is actually $3,500. In addition, it is essential to know the net value of your income. What does that mean? It's how much actually goes into your account after the government has taken its share in taxes and other contributions. If you work, this amount is already deducted from your salary, so all you have to do is look at your statement and see what has gone into your account. But if you're a freelancer or self-employed, you need to calculate this, considering that part of your earnings needs to be set aside to pay taxes later. Imagine you did some freelance work and received $1,000. Sounds great, right? But if you have to pay 10% tax on that amount, your net income will actually be $900. Always calculate with the net amount in mind so you don't end up with any nasty surprises later on. Phase 2. Dividing expenses into 3 categories. Now that you know exactly how much you earn, it's time to plan how to spend that money strategically. And this is where many people get lost. The key to organizing your finances is to divide your spending into 3 main categories: essentials, pleasures, and future you. Let's break down what each of these categories means. 1. Essentials. Essentials are those expenses that, as the name suggests, are essential for living. There's no escaping it. Here we're talking about housing, food, transport, health, electricity, water and internet bills, and, if you have any, your children's school fees, for example. These are the expenses you have every month, come rain or shine. Now, an important tip. When listing your essential expenses, be as realistic as possible. Sometimes we underestimate how much we spend on everyday necessities and end up eating up a large part of our budget without realizing it. Take your bank statements from the last few months and see how much you actually spend on each of these areas. A common mistake is to underestimate the cost of eating out, for example. That daily coffee may seem harmless, but by the end of the month, it may have eaten up a good chunk of your budget. 2. Pleasures. There's more to life than paying bills, right? The pleasures category exists precisely so that you can enjoy the present without guilt. This includes expenses that make your life more fun and comfortable, but which are not necessarily essential for survival. This includes leisure, entertainment, clothes shopping, going out for dinner, subscriptions to streaming services such as Netflix and Spotify, and hobbies. But beware, it's easy to let this category get out of hand. A good example is that streaming subscription you barely use but pay for every month. You're enjoying it, but is it worth it? This is the time to make a critical analysis and define priorities. What really makes a difference to your quality of life, and what is just eating up your money without you realizing it. 3. Future you. And last, but definitely not least, we have Future You. This category is dedicated to savings and investments, i.e., everything you set aside to ensure that your future self is well taken care of. This can range from building up an emergency reserve to investing for retirement or other long-term goals. The golden rule applies here: pay yourself first. Instead of waiting until the end of the month to save, spoiler, there's hardly ever any left, set aside an amount as soon as the money hits your account. This way, you prioritize your long-term goals and create the habit of saving. 50-30-20 rule. A good way of distributing money between these three categories is to follow the famous 50-30-20 rule. According to this rule, 50% of your net income goes to essentials, 30% to pleasures, 20% to future you. But remember, this rule is a starting point, not an immutable law. Maybe your essential costs are more than 50% of your income, or maybe you want to be more aggressive with your savings and put away 25% for the future you. Adjust the percentages according to your reality, but always keep a balance. For example, let's say your net monthly income is $3,000. Applying the 50-30-20 rule, you would have $1,500 for essential expenses, $900 for pleasures, and $600 to save and invest in your future. Phase 3. Organization and automation. Now that you know where your money goes, let's talk about the importance of organizing and automating your payments. When you automate, you are protecting yourself from one of the biggest enemies of financial management: forgetfulness. Want to see how this works? Let's think about essential expenses, such as rent, electricity, and water bills. Instead of relying on your memory to pay these bills every month, set up automatic debiting. This way, you eliminate the risk of late or forgotten payments and avoid paying interest and fines for late payments. This also applies to your savings transfers. Want to see a practical example? As soon as your paycheck arrives, schedule an automatic transfer to your savings or investment account. It could be $200, $500, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that this transfer happens automatically, right at the beginning of the month, so that you don't even miss it. The advantage of automating your payments and transfers is that you don't have to rely on willpower. After all, we know that, in the heat of the moment, the temptation to spend can be great. When the process is already automated, you eliminate the risk of sabotaging yourself. Phase 4. Monitoring and adjusting. Now that you've organized everything and automated as much as you can, it's time to monitor the results and make the necessary adjustments. This is where one of the most important parts of financial management comes in: the monthly review. At the end of each month, take some time to sit down and look at your spending. Compare what you planned with what you actually spent. This will help you understand if you are on the right track or if you need to make adjustments. Did you spend more than planned in the Prazeres area? It may be time to rethink some choices. On the other hand, if you've spent less than you thought, it might be a good opportunity to save even more. Here's a simple example. Let's say you plan to spend $1,500 on your essential expenses, but ended up spending $1,600. Was this increase unavoidable, such as a higher-than-expected electricity bill? Or did you end up spending more on something you could have controlled? This analysis is fundamental to adjusting your expectations and your budget for the following month. The idea here is not to blame yourself for going off plan, but to learn from it and do better next month. Financial management is a journey, and each month is an opportunity to learn and improve. Phase 5. Protecting yourself against unforeseen events. Finally, we come to the last phase: protecting yourself against unforeseen events. Emergencies happen, and they can often destabilize your entire financial life if you're not prepared. That's why it's essential to create an emergency fund. An emergency fund is basically an amount that you set aside exclusively for unexpected situations, such as a layoff, a health problem, or even an urgent home renovation. Ideally, this fund should cover 3 to 6 months of your essential expenses. Let's go back to the example of a net income of $3,000. If your essential expenses are $1,500 a month, your emergency fund should be between $4,500 and $9,000. Sounds like a lot, I know, but start slowly. The important thing is to build up this fund little by little every month until you reach an amount that gives you security. And here's another tip. Keep this money in a separate account. This will prevent you from spending it on other things. The emergency fund is your safety net, and you should only use it if you really need it. The key to financial success is consistency. It's not about being perfect all the time, but about making adjustments and improving a little every month. Remember, every step you take today, no matter how small, is a step towards your financial freedom. And when you learn to balance spending in the present with plans for the future, you transform your relationship with money. So the next time your paycheck lands in your account, take a deep breath, follow these 5 tips, and watch your financial life transform.